Hello there and thanks for joining us. This is The World Now on TVC News. A virtual summit on the war in Ukraine is being held in the UK. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, says the Russian President Vladimir Putin cannot be allowed to play games with the peace negotiation process. While talking about the U.S. proposed ceasefire deal, the U.S. Secretary of State accused the Russian leader of trying to delay an agreement, emphasizing that the Russian president cannot be allowed to play games with the peace process. He also adds that Mr. Putin will have to come to the table sooner or later. Mr. Starmer also pushes for further backing for Ukraine and calls for more pressure on Russia. The aim of the summit is for Europe to persuade the U.S. to guarantee Ukraine's security in the future. Earlier in the week, President Putin set out conditions for a ceasefire in Ukraine, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called his response manipulative. Also this week, U.S. President Donald Trump said he held good and productive discussions with Vladimir Putin during talks in Moscow. For more on the UK summit, let's bring in now global affairs analyst Ambrose Ogboke, who joins me from Enugu here in Nigeria. Dr. Ogboke, thanks a lot for joining us on The World Now. So here we are now. There's been a summit. The U.S. Prime Minister has spoken about plans to pile more pressure, which may include more sanctions on Russia, all in a bid for peace. As the EU puts it, or as Europe puts it, basically, what do you think?
Well, I think the EU is trying to save face. Prime Minister Starmer should not be talking tough because, let me borrow the words of President Trump, that he doesn't have the cards. When he had the cards, he didn't play them well. Britain didn't play the cards well. EU didn't play the cards well. It took President Trump in America to change the game before the EU now started singing another song. The EU were the ones that found the embers of this war. It was EU that pushed Ukraine into war with Russia. It was EU that, through NATO, made the two neighbors go into war because they didn't keep, NATO did not keep to the agreement they had post disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1990-1991, where there was a gentleman's agreement that NATO should not expand to the territories of the former Soviet Union. NATO has consistently, not abided with that resolution and with that agreement. And finally, they pushed until they wanted Ukraine. And Russia said, no, we cannot allow you to have your weapons in our backyard. It's for security reasons. But they pushed Ukraine into that. And they refused to let Ukraine, back out of the war until Donald Trump came. So I don't see EU doing anything. Sometime last month, they were afraid that Donald Trump would go the whole hog of isolating the EU while discussing directly with Vladimir Putin. Hence, they were scurrying around, trying to ensure that there were some activities to ensure that they become part of the bargain. Otherwise, Trump would have just gone ahead and secluded them and Ukraine from the talks with Vladimir Putin. But they saw that sign and immediately they rejigged and came back to action. They are still talking tough, and everybody has to calm down and see how they can both, talk well with Russia, but threatening Russia with sanctions and at the same time telling them about ceasefire and telling them ending the war. These are things that don't mix together.
Right, and let's also have your opinion on the conditions that Russia has set out for peace to reign or peace to be in place in Ukraine. Ukraine has, of course, said these conditions are manipulative. These conditions include that Ukraine cannot join NATO and that any military action or drill, so to speak, be suspended around. So all these conditions, are they as manipulative as Ukraine puts it?
Well, there's what you call a root cause analysis. Every problem has a root cause. And the root cause of this war is that Russia does not want Ukraine to join NATO for its own security. Because when Russia even tried it, when Cuba was communists, those days, during the time of early days of Fidel Castro, Russia wanted to build a defense base in Cuba. And because Cuba was a backyard to the United States, that was the high level of Cold War, the United States said no, that Russia cannot be allowed to build base in Cuba. And when they tried it, America went there and bombed the hell out of the place. And today, apart from bombing it, they annexed it. And today, America is still an American territory, that area in Cuba. Therefore, some 50 years down the line, these people want to, Russia now wants to, America through NATO wants to do the same thing to another superpower, Russia. And Russia said, don't do it. And the NATO pushed for it. And they are doing the same thing America did in Cuba in 1968. So this is it. Vladimir Zelensky should be very clear about what he wants for his people. It should not just be a pawn in the game. Russia will not allow Ukraine to join NATO. And that is the root cause of it. Every attempt to join NATO will be resisted by Russia. And EU, NATO cannot force it on Russia. If they do, it will be a world war. Therefore, everybody is very, very careful because Russia is a superpower. Russia is not a pushover nation that you can just play with. And if you try that, then we hope there will be conflagration. So Zelensky should, I think, to talk less. Let the people that have given him 3 years, according to what Trump said. I mean, we have been given 3 years to sort this out. Both EU, both Zelensky, they were not able to sort it out. Trump is now bringing his own prescription to see how it will work. So I think the less EU talks about this and the less Zelensky talks about it, then I think that let them allow Trump sort it out with Putin. I think this is just the early stage of the discussion. There will be more to it to iron out, places differences. But also, I think Donald Trump also knows where the cross of the matter lies, and maybe he should, where the discussions go further, he should make a definite statement that Ukraine should not be allowed to join NATO, and that is just it.
Is it possible that the U.S. can be made to exercise some level of restraint in a bid for tensions to be reduced? Is that something you also see likely?
There's a contention here. The Kursk region is a territory that the Ukraine has taken over in the course of the war. And what Putin is doing is to ramp up pressure on Ukraine to push back, to ensure that Ukraine is pushed back to their territory so that they can take up the place before this ceasefire. And that is a strategic move by Russia. And I think that is why he's doing some delay tactics to see whether he can take up the Kursk region, regain it for Russia. Then you can ask, okay, I'm ready to negotiate. And that is why he has been pounding that region, pounding the forces there day and night to see whether he can achieve that.
Right. Ambrose Igboke, that would be a fine place to rest our conversation. Thank you very much for your contributions.